So lid goes on and voila, beautiful beef burger fit for a king. So come and join me in the kitchen. I thought I'd start things off today with the most simple thing I could think of, fruit salad. But I want to jazz it up with a couple of techniques I've learned over the years, using all natural chemicals. For the last few hundred years, chefs have been using the exact same techniques, just presenting it a little bit different and calling it something else. But 5 years ago, brand new techniques came in that no one had ever even heard of, let alone thought of or even tried. So for chefs, that was really exciting. I don't expect everyone to give this a crack at home, but with only a couple of episodes left, I couldn't risk not showing it to you guys. This is really cool techniques and not everyone can afford to go out and spend 500 bucks a head just to get a look at it. To start things off today, I'm gonna make blueberry caviar. But don't stress guys, there's no fish eggs involved and it might be a caviar you actually wanna eat. So in here, I've just got blueberries in syrup, just from a tin. But all I want from this is the syrup. So strain it off. And make sure you keep your blueberries. Just throw them to the side, you put them on some yogurt for brekkie tomorrow. So now that you've got your blueberry syrup, the next step is to add our chemical in. So for that, we'll need to go into my magic box. So the first one we're going to use is sodium alginate. All of these chemicals are available at food specialty stores, but even better, get them online. And we'll make sure on the website we write down all the details. So this is sodium alginate and this is extracted from algae, and don't let it scare you off because it's not a whole lot different to using gelatin. The only difference with this is it needs calcium to set, unlike gelatin which will just set in the fridge. So for this I've got a 1 heaped tablespoon and I'm going to throw that in. Then all we have to do is just make sure it's mixed through it well. So you'll notice that it's thickened up quite a bit now and it's got that foam on top. That foam will just settle away. In order to turn these into caviar, we need to move to our next step. For this, we're going to need our next chemical. And all this is a form of calcium. So 1/4 teaspoon of this goes into 1 cup of regular tap water. But every time you do this, it's a little bit different. So you've got to give and take a little bit and just have a bit of a trial and error with it. So in that goes, and just stir it in until it dissolves. So once your calcium's all dissolved, it's time for the exciting bit. Now this next step is the part where we cook it. So the longer we leave our liquid here, in our calcium here, then the firmer they're going to be. But ideally what we want is for them just to be set around the outside and be liquid in the center. So to make them, we get some of our blueberry syrup in our syringe. In order to get perfect little droplets, the best weapon of choice is a syringe. So this one here, I just bought from the chemist for 50 cents. So now it's time to turn it just from a liquid into our little caviar. So drop them in, try and just to get single drops as you go. So if they're not forming perfect circles as they hit, it probably means that you've got not enough calcium in your water or not enough sodium alginate in here. So that's what I mean by trial and error. But once they're in there, we don't want to let them go for too long, so strain them off. If you put a strainer on top like that, it's easier than fishing around for them. So then from there, just into some clean water. This washes off the calcium from the other water that you cook it in. And then you've got little blueberry caviars ready to go. But I can't linger on these for too long because I want to show you a blackberry foam as well. Pretty impressive though. So next up, I'm going to make blackberry foam. I was going to make pineapple foam, but somewhere on the way here, my pineapple juice has escaped from my shopping bags. So we're going with blackberry foam, but you can make it out of anything at all. So to start off with, we need to make a liquid. So I'm going to get my blackberries in. This is just a cup of frozen blackberries. Next, 2 cups of warm water. and then your lid goes on. So once you're happy that it's all blitzed up, try not to make too much of a mess, and then into a container. The important thing here is to use a container that gives you a lot of surface area, because then you get more foam. So our next step, and our most important step, is to put a bit of lecithin in there. Now lecithin is just derived from soybeans. So once again, it's just a natural chemical. And then in there you go with that. Depending on what you're using and how thick it is, then the quantity varies. But for this, which is 2 cups, I would recommend about a teaspoon. Now, grab your stick blender and make sure it's all combined in. So once your chemicals have been combined into it, then what you want to do is try and get as much air in as possible. So by holding your stick blender half out, this helps achieve this. But what you want in the end is lots of foam, which is what we've got here. Now the reason why we use the soy lecithin in there is because it stabilizes this foam. So unlike other foams, like when you make your milkshake or anything, that if you touch it, then it will dissolve. This one will actually stay put, which you can see there. So it makes a great addition to any dessert. So in the bowl here, I've got some pomegranate, some passion fruit, some figs, strawberries, kiwi fruit, and some grapefruit, and just a few walnuts as well. But it's time to put our finishing touches on now, starting with our caviar. So, blueberry caviar. Now obviously a dessert like this you wouldn't serve up every night, but it's pretty spectacular for those very VIP guests. So caviar's on, now it's time for our foam. So when you're using these things, they're best just to use them in moderation. You don't want to go too crazy with them. It gives a much better effect if you just use a little bit. Well, I guess it's not really fruit salad, but I didn't want to scare you guys off with too much chemical talk, because I reckon that is pretty awesome. But stick around guys, because coming up next, I've got the coolest dessert that I know how to make. See you then.